This is the Perfect Being. I'm here to tell you all to subscribe to the perfect channel, UnrealEntGaming. Please remember to turn on your notifications to be the first to know about the latest in Dragon Ball news and information. And if you don't, very soon you will all be dead, along with your entire planet.
Dragon Ball Super episode 100 is now officially in the history books as we make our way towards Dragon Ball Super episode 101, and joining me here today to share their thoughts and predictions on the upcoming episode is my good friend Dragon Ball YouTuber EmoshIsLIVE, as I encourage you guys to drop your predictions down below as to what you guys believe is going to happen in the upcoming episode. Emosh, we just saw some of the craziest things in Dragon Ball Super episode 100, and I think we're going to get into that a little later on. But first things first, I want to talk about the Pride Troopers. Now, we get to see in the upcoming preview that Goku, Android 17, and 18, alongside Kale and Caulifla, are in trouble as we see the Pride Troopers in pursuit against them, as we do understand, based on spoilers, that Goku is going to be challenging Jiren, and Jiren having to decline and sending his own Pride Troopers to handle the job. So I wanted to get your thoughts first and foremost as to if you believe the Pride Troopers are going to cause, you know, some trouble for Universe 7 and 6, or if you believe that they're all going to get fodderized, because judging based on who's attacking them, the only one that I think is going to be causing some sort of damage to them is going to be Casserole, because he has like these two energy blades and he's coming after them. So I think that he might last the longest among the other 5 that are being sent, and that includes the female, that includes the frog-like character, the little midget that you love so much. So I wanted to get your thoughts on the Pride Troopers and where you seeing them stand in the upcoming episode, and if you also believe that Toppo is going to get involved, judging based on how, as he's the leader, but we haven't seen anything from him up until this very point. So what are your thoughts on the Pride Troopers going into next week's episode?
Well, I feel like they're going to kind of weed out certain characters early on, especially the Pride Troopers, granted that they work so well together.
Like the weak ones,
but
right?
Still, yeah, I mean, I guess you could say weak, but as a unit, we know they're pretty powerful, right? So I would say as a unit, they're very powerful, but, you know, in terms of one-on-one fights and stuff like that, they're trying to weed out certain characters similarly, you know, to how they did today, where, for example, we saw that guy Napapa, whatever I think that's his name.
Napapa, yeah.
He got back up after Frieza bodied him, so it looks like Frieza is just bodying people just for the sake of bodying them and not really bringing anybody out, which is kind of detrimental and kind of defeats the purpose of him even playing part, as he agreed to play part in this tournament and be some kind of beneficiary as far as this tournament is concerned. So I feel like they're just weeding out certain characters to make room. I don't think it would make sense to, you know, to bring out Toppo now, especially. Right. Maybe let's say theoretically say he rings out next episode, right? I don't think it would be in terms of, you know, to try to make him look fodder, but more so just to make him go out in a certain way where he kind of like holds on to the dignity of being the leader of the Pride Troopers. Similar to how today, even when Jiren, you know, opposed Kale, even Toppo was like, Jiren, you know, like he was like, wait, what are you doing? And Jiren was like, listen, I got this. It's over. You know, And he took care of Kale, and that was that. So they're definitely trying to weed out certain characters, but at the same time trying to showcase other Team Universe 7 characters. For example, we haven't seen much from 17 directly, and we've yet to see anything from Gohan, Piccolo, Tien, and Roshi, because right now, and it is obvious that they're really saving them for a critical and crucial moment. So it's safe to say that they're going to showcase early characters early on. For example, we got to see Hit, but did we get to see Hit do anything insane? No. Well, he kind of wrung out Nariyama, and by the way, we got confirmation that time skip does work, so that's a good thing.
That was a pretty cool thing, though. He dismembered him first, and then he knocked him out. He flicked him out of there, so that was interesting.
He gave the machine a choice. Either fall out by yourself or get wrung out by me. Which one do you want? So, but yeah, they're definitely weeding out certain characters, and the same way they did with Universe 10, right? Napapa and the other crab from Futurama, the lobster guy, whatever his name is. I don't know.
This is Zoidberg, as I call him.
Yeah, that's his name, Zoidberg, and stuff like that. So that's definitely what's happening here. Eventually, we're gonna start as the small fries get knocked off. We're gonna start to see a lot more intense fights with guys like Jiren, Toppo, Goku, and the previews the previews make it look like Caulifla's in trouble, but I imagine this is due to her kind of tossing her power around.
She's a little damaged too. I don't know if you noticed.
Yeah, but I think this is due to her as well as like tossing her power around way too much. For example, Super Saiyan 1, now she powered up to like the Ultra Super Saiyan, then powered back down, went to Super Saiyan 2, and she's just letting her power fly out. So I feel like she's losing sight of the goal here, right? So that's kind of interesting. So excited though, man. Excited for next week. Definitely.
So which character do you think is going to get thrown out amongst the group? Because I think that the female that Android 18 fought is going to go. And for some weird reason, between the frog and the midget, I think that one of those two are definitely going to go. And the reason why I'm calling them frog and midget is because we don't have official names for them. We got the Charmander, dude. I believe the Charmander's name is like Varun or something like that. So he's gone. One-shotted by Kale, actually. So you think it's going to be the frog? I really can't see the midget lasting all that long either. I'm sorry.
Okay, based on Akira Toriyama's like style of being like, you know, of designing gag characters and stuff like that, I imagine him to be like a gag character. So I don't think they would bring him. I mean, maybe he will get rung out next episode, but I don't see him getting like. Maybe he might get some kind of shine. Why introduce a character that small and put him on, you know, as part of a team that literally maintains peace and balance within Universe 11, the entire universe, by the way, and just, you know, he gets fodder just like that. So I can see the frog going out first. The little midget guy seems like a gag character, and Toriyama tends to favor characters like that. So I don't see him getting. I mean, I would say he would last the episode, perhaps.
That makes sense. Okay.
Well, the Yardra got fodder, by the way. So
oh man, that was okay. So we're gonna get into all that stuff a little later. Okay, so it pertains to what's gonna happen with the androids. So do you see them actually working as a cohesive unit, similar to how the future androids worked, or do you think that they're just gonna be in sync momentarily until something else happens? Because Casserole is on their ass.
Yeah, but the future androids kind of like were a lot more demented and twisted as opposed to our androids, right?
Yeah, they
even
were,
Trunks said, no, those androids are a lot different than the ones from my timeline, right?
And these are actually more powerful. So I mean, at least we have that.
Much stronger, but a lot more lax and stuff like that. So based on what we see, they are doing that little back-to-back pose that they used to do, back in Dragon Ball Z and stuff like that. So it kind of looks like, okay, well now that Krillin's out of the picture. By the way, I absolutely loved how they were just biting him with the comments that they were saying.
Oh no, yeah, they were trashing him, especially 18.
She practically disowned him for the most part. That was very enjoyable to see. But I think right now, because it looks like Goku was leading, and then 17 and 18 were behind him, which is also interesting. Then we have Caulifla looking a little battle damaged and worn out, maybe perhaps due to her stamina issues. Kale was crying, but I see Kale. I see Kale and.
Do you see her transforming again?
Yeah, I see it happening. Especially if she gets to rest a little bit and she gets a Zenkai from that. It's gonna be scary,
I'm sorry, but she should have been gone. I mean, Jiren's attack to that was just devastating, because Jiren did to Kale what Goku couldn't do with his Kamehameha, and that was saying something. So as soon as he blasted her up in the air, he said it's over, and she blew up, and then she came back down. So I was like, holy shit. So do you see any important character like Roshi getting ringed out, or someone, you know, amongst our team that's gonna get ringed out next week, or no?
For Universe 7, it's difficult to say.
Because remember, Roshi gets separated, and he's actually throwing down, you know?
He's throwing down, but based on spoilers, it says that he manages to go back with his group. Like, his group shows up, and they end up helping him. So if that's the case, then that would be the only way for someone to get rung out. I would say Tien. I would say, I honestly don't think they're going to get rid of Roshi this early on. I feel like they might try to give him some kind of spotlight, utilize his techniques in some way, shape, or form, and then he'll get rung out as a result. Right. So, because right now, even after Krillin, you know, they mentioned Krillin getting knocked out, Roshi was the one to keep them together and say, well, listen, we could look at it this way, or we could look at it that way, and you know, which was a great piece of advice as well. So to this, it just seems like that group has not moved from that spot, which you could argue is kind of annoying, or as a fan. But at the same time, right now it is the smartest thing. Yeah,
strategy-wise, they're all sticking together as well. I mean, I definitely feel like Tien might be the first one to go among that group too. Second one actually from Krillin, because I can definitely see them actually progressing a little bit forward. But in terms of the Pride Troopers, I don't know. And this is just my opinion, and this is just my prediction. I can definitely see the final four from the Pride Troopers having to be Jiren, Topo, Dispo, and Casserole. Like those four, I think are going to be the main four. I'm sorry for the other guys. I don't really see them going far. The Agumon looking dude got one-shotted. The female was having a tough time against 18. We don't know anything about the other three, but I can only assume that they are powerful, but not as powerful as you would assume. And we see Casserole, you know, just he's on the offensive against both the androids and Goku as well. So among all of them, I could see Casserole probably taking the L before anybody else, like in terms of like the final four. But the question is, like, where's Dispo in all this? Because we haven't seen him since like the first opening of the tournament, like when he fought Kaba.
He was fighting Kaba, and then after that, I don't know what happened. He just decided Sonic Warrior
it's like he disappeared. So, but do you see Topo getting involved in any way, shape, or form? Given the fact that he is the leader, of course.
No. I see him sticking with Jiren, to be honest. Right, I think that would be the smartest thing to do right now. Because right now, even though we saw Topo fight Goku, right? After this exhibition match was over, Toppo kind of got his little spot in the sun. But now, even though he is the leader of the Pride Troopers, Jiren clearly acts on his own. Like he's not abiding by what anybody's telling him or anything like that, right? Then according to the previews, we see Vermouth talking, and Jiren seems to be looking to his left and all this other stuff. So you could argue maybe Jiren and Vermouth are telepathically linked to an extent. Maybe they talk to each other, via telepathy. Maybe that's why Jiren gets to act on his own, as to where Toppo kind of guides that specific Pride Trooper unit.
Yeah.
And Jiren gets to do his own thing because he sees things from a different perspective.
Right.
Clearly, he sees things from a different perspective, right? So you could argue that Jiren is a part of the Pride Troopers, but as far as him utilizing his team, as far as teamwork is concerned, it doesn't seem to be, that doesn't seem to be at all showcased right now. So granted, as to how strong he is, he's kind of like the muscle behind the team, like the definitive trump card where, okay, if these guys can't do it as a unit, I'll come in and I'll solo everybody, and then that's a wrap for that, right?
Right.
So that's what it appears to be. I imagine next week to be an episode where it's kind of like, okay, we're not really focusing on one character anymore, but we are focusing on, we're kind of just letting things settle down, but they're adding to the drama aspect of that. Caulifla's damaged, she seems to be tired. Kale just got one-shotted. I don't want to say one-shotted to the point where she could not fight anymore.
Right.
Because after that Super Saiyan Blue Kamehameha wave, some people will say, well, the Goku's attack weakened her. It wasn't that. Piccolo even confirmed it, where her power was literally unstable because she ends up powering up.
He said, and I quote, she can't control her power.
So she ends up powering up again after that, and then releases everything. So if that's the case, by default, it's gonna be a stamina drain. So if you're hurting on the inside, right? If somebody with a lot of power hits you from the outside, that's naturally gonna be the result of that, as to where she ends up going back to her base form. So that's it makes sense. Everything that happened, I can't argue with that.
Even Hit said that if she doesn't control her power, she's gonna kill somebody. And for some reason, I don't know if you noticed, but she went after Caulifla until Jiren stepped in, and I was like, whoa, like that was pretty interesting. But I mean, I think the most interesting part was when Hit looked at Jiren and he said "you," and he pulled his hands out of his pocket, and then for that one moment, and we called it actually last week. We called it. I said that maybe.
Yeah, we did.
I was like, maybe they're gonna have like some sort of like stare down, or maybe they acknowledge each other, and they did, until the clown comes out the rocks and he's like, yo. So I'm like, okay, what a way to ruin it, like casually just coming out waving yo. So I was like, okay,
I'm Goku.
okay guys, okay, like come on, dude, like what a way to ruin it. But
Son Goku.
also it looks like the way Caulifla, Kale, and Hit actually orchestrated their, well, actually mainly Caulifla and Hit, when Hit said now's her chance, they pretty much fled the scene. So I was like, all right, well, obviously it's a smart thing to do.
Yeah.
But do you see, I would say, any involvement from Gohan next week, or anything from the other secondary characters, as we're going to be focusing in on the androids and Goku again, and even Vegeta in this episode? He got a brief showcase against both Tama, Vegeta, and Kaba, and I was really hoping to see Vegeta against Kaba, but they kind of like teased that, I guess, to save it on.
Honestly, man, it goes back to what we were talking about. I don't know what video we did, because we've done so many, but I feel like when I was it might have been off of camera when I was talking to Vegeta about, I was talking with you about Vegeta, how I feel about Vegeta in this tournament and stuff like that, and I feel like they're gonna shit on him, bro. Even though he seems to be struggling, he is right now, between him and Goku, I would say Vegeta is putting out more effort in terms of keeping his hands full, as to where Goku is approaching this as a fun and games kind of thing, right? So we had Goku versus, when he was fighting the Yard Rat, he was just chilling. All of a sudden, Kale just comes and one-shots him, and he's like, well, who are you two? And then all of a sudden, it becomes a thing where, okay, let me tutor you, you're pretty interesting, to Caulifla.
Which doesn't make any sense as to why he asked, who are you two, because he already met them.
He's met them before, right? So it's like, well, and then Caulifla was being condescending with him, calling him old man, and this other junk, and are you scared? And Kale tried to butt in, but then they were like, bro, like, can you sit the fuck down? Kale
that's exactly what he said. He was like, could you not bother?
Yeah, and then so Kale is obviously very attached to Caulifla in terms of I don't want you to take anybody, don't take her away from me and stuff like that. She's very attached, because I think Caulifla is the only one that really acknowledges Kale. So for everybody saying, well, Kale's lesbian and all this other junk, no, it's just a matter of, based on what we're seeing, Caulifla seems to be the only person who literally acknowledges Kale and takes her seriously and lifts her high, as to where Kale is the one who holds herself back. So as a result of that, it's like a mommy thing, right? She kind of babysitting Kale, even though Caulifla it mentions twice in the episode, I believe in you. So I think next week is going to be an episode where we can settle down, but at the same time kind of look at it from a storytelling perspective, where now 17 and 18 seem to be working together, which is something the fans wanted to see, something we wanted to see as well. Goku is, by the way, just came off of a fight with Kale, a severe fight with Kale as well, I would say. So he's going to be a little, you know, like you could say, well, he might be a little winded. Caulifla just, you know, just throwing her power around, so she's going to be a little winded. So in terms of the Pride Troopers coming in, if they end up looking a lot stronger than they do, even as a one-on-one scenario or a teamwork scenario, you could argue this is wise, because right now we just came off of a very intense fight with Goku Super Saiyan 2 versus Caulifla Super Saiyan 2. Goku's, you know, he's a lot more, he's managing his power a lot better, as to where Caulifla's just throwing it around. Kale just came off of a rampage. So obviously we didn't expect that rampage to last indefinitely, because it would eventually consume her, and it would get to a point where she would have to either A, be killed, or just really not be knocked unconscious, which is what Jiren did to stabilize her, right? Everything is adding up so far, so good, man. I'm just glad that this episode lived up to the hype that we expected it to be. And going into next week, again, my expectations are not high until the episode actually comes, but I imagine we will get some dialogue. Next week will be one of those episodes where we see a lot of dialogue, and we get to come back that weekend and talk about, okay, so next week we can think about this, we can think about that. Of course, so after 17 and 18, I imagine then we're gonna start to see a little more Piccolo, a little more of Gohan, hopefully a little more of Tien and Roshi as well, granted that they survived next episode.
Because as of this recording, we don't know any spoilers about episode 102, 103, and stuff like that. So I'm pretty certain that we are going to be getting them at the end of the month. In terms of
I would say though that we are drawing much nearer to Universe 4 or Universe 10 being erased, for sure.
I would have to, man, you know, they ringed out Nagirishi way too early, and he was supposed to be someone that had invisibility, and he was the one that was very confident in
Universe 3, right?
Yeah, Universe 3. And he was like, you know, the leader in a way, and I was like what the, and it was by Kaba. It was a one shot too. I was like, whoa. So the one thing that we kept talking about with Kaba, we actually might see that in the future, because he ringed out 2 people with just 2 shots. It was just boom boom and it was over. So do you expect to see anything from him, and having him help out the girls if they're, you know, in cause of need, or do you see him having to be kept for like a later fight?
I feel like he's really determined to focus on Vegeta right now. That's what I think.
You think so?
That's what it looked like. I mean, you know, Master, it's time for you to drop out. And Vegeta has his hands full. He's trying to deal with Watamu and Vegeta. Then all of a sudden, Kaba pops out of nowhere, transforms, and says, okay, it's me and you now. And there's no doubt about it, Vegeta will slaughter Kaba, right?
Oh, yeah.
But it's like the way they're portraying it, it's like they're kind of teasing us with these matchups that we think or that we want to see, and then something happens in between. So, for example, Kale ended up releasing all that energy, and then everybody got split up, right? And we had that brief little screenshot of the certain characters on the screen, which, by the way, I can confirm because I checked it myself, aside from 17, etc. But we know that 17 was mentioned in this episode as well as the next previews, that those characters on the screen were the characters who were within the vicinity of what was going on with Kale and stuff like that.
Right.
We didn't see Frieza, we didn't see 17 like on the screenshots as to where she was releasing the energy, but we do know the fact that 17 was in this episode as well as 18, and they are also in the previews for the next episode. It's safe to confirm, as well as the robots. Universe 3 warriors were there, Universe 10 warriors were there, all those characters on the screen. Jiren was there. Those are all characters that were within the vicinity of Kale going crazy and going batshit crazy, so I can confirm that for sure.
I think Kale's showcase was great. I don't think it would be wise for her to transform again after what Jiren did. I think that if anything, he should have ringed her out. I mean, because that would have made sense. She went flying, she went hurling out in the distance. And
well, he controlled the energy blast too. Which is interesting. I will say though, Kale's weakness right now is herself. There's no doubt. Her power is her weakness right now. Yeah, her power alone is her weakness right now, because which, by the way, I can't believe I forgot to mention this. The content we got the original episode 100 previews from last week, right after 99 was over, mentioned Kale, and then they and Goku's like, "Yo, it's me, Goku." Is this the the Saiyan's true power or the Saiyan's true form? And then they reference that again. So I'm glad to see that they're not utilizing this concept of legendary Super Saiyan, but what they're trying to portray is the fact that this is what the ideal Super Saiyan was referenced as back even when Vegeta talked about it, right? That the Super Saiyans that I've heard of in Legend were ruthless monsters and warriors, and they were unstoppable, and they had so much power.
Right, and he mentioned that too,
They mentioned this a long time ago. So I like how they twisted the concept of Broly into being what a Saiyan should have been, like the ideal version. The only reason why Goku was not like that is because he was pure of heart. He was different. So he managed it differently, as well as Vegeta. He obtained his power differently. Gohan obtained his power through anger, but not through the same means of like a savage lust of rage and power and stuff like that. Gohan's had this since he was a kid, so it's a little different, right? So I like that. I was really happy to see.
What did you think about the whole Super Saiyan Blue Kamehameha thing? Because honestly, man, I'm sorry. This is post Goku after Black. This is post Goku after Frieza and Beerus. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Even if he was suppressed, let's say hypothetically speaking, let's say if he was suppressing a lot of his power, which he could have. I mean, I'm not saying that he's not, but he could have been. Even then, that should have been enough to do what Jiren's attack did. Because seeing Jiren do to Kale what Goku couldn't with his Kamehameha is scary. And what did you think of that? What did you think about the whole sequence of her popping out, grabbing him by the face, throwing him to the side? I mean, even prior, I would have agreed if it was Super Saiyan 2, because then it would have been like, okay, well, she far surpasses Super Saiyan 2, and having to like tank all that and just going in there and going for the kill. But what did you think about like that whole Super Saiyan Kamehameha sequence between Goku and Kale?
Well, am I allowed to troll a little bit, or?
I mean, sure, go ahead.
Well, I mean, he was clearly suppressed. He was only using like 1% of his power. I mean, that Kamehameha wave was equivalent to the power he used against Krillin, clearly.
Because honestly, dude, it's like it's like that. I think for me as a fan, because we've all got adjusted to Super Saiyan Blue, right? I mean, seeing what happened with Frieza, with Black.
But the issue.
It's just like, why? I mean, I'm not like, it's just it's too much Broly, and I get it. It's great marketing. It's how many years has it been since like the first Broly movie? Many years, dude. Like, what is it? 10 plus years, even more. So maybe all of like the kids watching, they don't know. So it's just like, instead of adapting Broly, you just copy and paste what he did to Goku, and it was almost the exact same thing. Broly grabbed Goku by the skull, and Kale grabbed Goku by the face. So it was like, oh my goodness, it's the exact same. So do you think, in your opinion, that was necessary? Or do you think it was something added in just to boost her character? Because honestly, man, I didn't agree, but that's just my opinion on the matter.
Right. So here's the thing. It goes two ways, right? One way is they could have just used a Super Saiyan 2 Kamehameha wave to replicate what happened in the movie, Broly movie, when Broly says, "Ha, what was that supposed to be?" And she just uppercuts him in the face, right? Yeah. And the screen shatters and everything. That they could have just done that, but they didn't. They specifically used Blue as a means to gauge where Kale stands, not to a max power Goku, but to a Goku who is trying, right? He was clearly trying. Anybody who tells you he was holding back like a huge margin of his power is just, I'm sorry, then you're just fucking like.
Remember, you can't kill people, so that.
No, of course. But see, that's the difference. That alone is the difference. Well, one, Kale just did not know what she was doing. She had every intention to kill everybody. She literally said Son Goku Kodos, like kill, right? So that's one. Two, they're just trying to showcase that Blue is severely overscaled. A lot of people have been severely overscaling Blue because they automatically deem Blue as a god tier. They deem Goku a god tier character when he isn't even a god, right? You wanna make him a god, then you put him as a Super Saiyan god, and then you let Goku fight in these similar scenarios, get body, but then rapidly grow the same he did as a Super Saiyan god. This is not something that he can do as a Super Saiyan Blue. He can't do that, right? So that's the difference. So, which I agree with to an extent. The whole Kamehameha wave thing, I obviously you already know why I enjoyed it, because it kind of showcases the concept of quality of power versus quantity of power, and if this quantity of power is to match this quality of power, how can we scale it this way? I did a couple of videos talking about it. You guys can definitely check that out as well. So that mentions there. I don't want to give too much of an explanation because I think it's going to drag out this video way too longer than it needs to be. But if let's say theoretically, Goku's Super Saiyan Blue at, let's say, 50% of his power has a God Key level of 9,000, right? In terms of quality, the quality of life is God Key or Super Saiyan Blue at God tier level, right? And it's 9,000. And Kale, being a mortal, right, not possessing this kind of characteristic trait, not having the concept of God Key and all this other stuff, would have to have a level of 90,000 to match that at 50%. But if Goku increases his power by another 10%, Kale would have to increase her power by another 100%, meaning the effort value, even though they're both at 50%, but the effort value for Goku is scaled higher. So if he bumps himself up another 10%, Kale has to go through higher heights to match him. So this is how you would be able to differentiate Super Saiyan Blue versus Super Saiyan 1, 2, or 3, or versus any other fighter. So that's how you do that, and then you apply Kaioken. That's that's a different ball game, but that's up to you. So that's just how I would portray it. And based on that formula, it does make sense. So if Goku continued to utilize more power, let's say another 20% of his power, but then at the same time, he had no intention of utilizing much power early on in the tournament. Remember, he still has to fight Jiren. He still has to fight so many other potential characters. So he has to hold back a certain amount of power. So I can confirm, yes, he was holding back, but at the same time, he was forced to go Super Saiyan Blue, right? And the effort value of him fighting Kale was much higher than it was against, for example, him fighting 17, for example, right? So that's clear. That's what they were portraying. Based on that formula, it does make sense. It's just up to you guys as to whether or not you want to grasp that concept or not. But if you don't want to grasp that concept, then just enjoy the show.
And again, people are saying, yo, man, that image is fake. Like when the image was first, put out by Fuji TV and stuff, and people were like, oh man, that image is fake. And then we actually got it. And I was actually, going into this episode, I was a little worried because I didn't think that we were going to get it, but we got it. And, and it finally confirms Goku having to say, listen, that form isn't sufficient enough, you might want to stick with this, and then you use Super Saiyan 2. So I think that next week's episode is going to be chaotic. Probably not as chaotic as this, because this one was like all over the place. But we would like to hear what you guys have to say down in the comment section below. What are your overall thoughts and predictions going into Dragon Ball Super episode 100? Post your comments down below, guys. Emish, thank you so much for joining me, guys. Go on ahead and check out Emish. Go ahead. What was that?
By the way, before we go, guys, let us know what you think about Goku mentioning how Caulifla may be able to become or tap into Super Saiyan 3 in this fight.
That was interesting.
What do you guys think about that? Let us know.
I don't know. I mean, I would be more accepting of 3 than Super Saiyan Blue. That's just my opinion, of course. But like I said before, guys, let us know what you guys have to say. Thank you all for watching. If you guys are new, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, guys. Turn on notifications. That way you guys can be notified whenever a Dragon Ball video is posted on the channel. Thank you all for watching. And again, guys, and we'll be seeing you all down below. Take it easy, guys. Peace.